the reserve requirements for banks to give out loans has been removed because of COVID. And then I was just like...
Wait, there's no reserve requirement?
No!
They did it like on a Friday night at 10 p.m.
Which is why inflation is so low.
Wait. So there's not even a fractional reserve system anymore? It's a reserve system now?
They just print money now.
It's literally just fraud. It's literally just fraud. That's called fraud. You're just loaning out a bunch of money you don't have.
That explains why the reverse repo rate is like $1.2 trillion daily now.
What does that mean?
It's where like the banks and the Fed like swap securities and swap money in order to back up the fact that they've loaned out all their money and don't have anything on the books.
Which is actually good for the economy in the long term, I hear. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
It's really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
The economy being gold, Bitcoin, land.
Yes. No, that's true. I mean, I'm not going to give financial. I was about to give myself financial advice, but there's a little sheet here that tells me not to give financial advice.
That's true.
But I would never dream of it.
No.
But you almost work for Goldman Sachs, so I'm saying
that's true.
No. You can give financial advice. It's just you're legally like
you're bound.
No, that's liable. Financial advice. I mean. You can give financial advice, legal advice, or medical advice, but then you're liable for someone will be like, Seamus told me to take the fork.
And would it be the stream that it was set on would also become liable? So like there's chains of liability if you start doing it?
No.
Basically, you're going to go back to your pajama
What we try to
pants.
tell people is like, when we're talking about Bitcoin and stuff, make sure you're like, I'm not advising you on anything.
Yeah.
That's on you. Not
Yeah. I didn't say anything then. Before the show, we were talking about doing a bit. I was like, what if we just like make up a bunch of random ingredients to say in the vaccine just off the top of our heads? That would be great for Tim's channel. Just like Flintstones gummies, dude.
And no one laughed.
YouTube literally.
So I guess it wasn't that good of a bit.
I felt the tension in the room. I was like,
And Tim was like, no. Tim was like, I will shoot you.
These guys are all drunk.
What? I'm sober.
I gotta say, I'm very
all it takes for
optimistic.
you, Jack.
I'm way more optimistic today than I was yesterday. I realized last night that I thought I'd been building out the Fediverse because we've been working on this decentralized social media app, basically, that's going to connect people. What we're really building is the metaverse, which is ultimately artificial intelligence, augmented reality, finance, and social media conglomerating and do it like an Internet 3.0.
But we're starting with...
We're building the first leg of it, which is the Fediverse social media aspect of it.
Decentralized, self-sustaining social media tools for people who want to run their own, have their own internet presence in any capacity.
It's going to be epic. And other people are building the other legs as we're doing it. And I'm finding today that people are contacting me and then we're merging, software.
This is why crypto is so important right now. I want everyone to remember exactly Jack's reaction when he was like, there's no reserve requirement for banks.
I had not heard that.
The price of Bitcoin went up when he said that.
Here's the crazy thing, too. Like we talked about this with Bob Murphy. The M1 money supply. You can watch it just go forward and it like skyrockets. Yeah. And everyone always goes, Tim, you're wrong. They just changed the definition of how they define money supply. And then you look after they change the definition and it's skyrocketing in like a 90 or like an 80-degree angle. And I'm like, yo, this is why all the ultra wealthy people are buying properties sight unseen in places like West Virginia and Idaho. Let me just say real quick, just one point. If you've been tracking the real estate market, I don't know if you've seen this, Jack. I'm calling agents because we're like, we want to expand. We need more space. And the stories I'm hearing, agent says, I got a call the other day. They said, I'll take it. And I was like, do you want to set up a meeting? Do you need financing? And they're like, no, I said, I'll take it. And they're like, do you want to see it? No, I said, I'll take it. Where do I wire the money? Like that. Because people who live in these big cities who have cash know the cash is worthless. And they're like, I need to get this in something that's a guarantee. Land. Land's a guarantee. For the most part.
I bought a bunch of
Pardon me, I got to go.
Yeah, no, then the question is, so I think we would all agree that inflation's occurring and is going to get worse, but the question is, will the real estate bubble outpace inflation?
People got to live somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think, yes. I think it will. I think there could be a crash, but I'm not a financial expert.
Look, if you just value the land in terms of dollars, you have a fixed amount of land.
Yeah.
And you get more dollars. Well, it's just going to go up in dollar value.
Yeah. But if it's a bubble though, and that bubble pops, and then the property's worth significantly less.
Right. The bubble in 2008 was because there was lax underwriting standards. You could get loans if you had no income, you had no assets. Yeah. You could lie about everything, ninja loans, etc. So that was a bubble created through a lack of underwriting and regulatory oversight and stuff. This is just straight price inflation because there's just more money chasing a fixed amount of product.
And so you are giving me financial advice.
I am just clearly talking about economics. That's it. In finance.
I'm thinking
almost the same thing.
I'm looking at crypto. I'm looking at crypto prices. I'm looking at the manipulation of the crypto market. I'm just thinking. My attitude is, man, I do not want to have U.S. dollars.
Yeah, last night I went on a rock and stone frenzy and bought a bunch of opals. And I was like, wow, have you ever looked at an opal? It's silicon dioxide in water. Because they always say, if you're going to invest,
what are you talking about?
If you're going to invest your money, invest it in gold, silver, jewels, like gems. Gems are legit. Because I don't know, something about looking into a gem, like a really unique gem. Man, that is transformative.
Just please don't let that be your financial.
And land. But I was like, land or gems? Well, let's do both.
No, I'm giving you a hard time because you caught me very off guard there. I've never heard someone say that they're like investing in
gems. I was like, I'm investing in gems. I didn't realize it until after I was doing it.
I will say maybe to that.
Yeah.
Assuming the system exists and inflation happens, then the value of these items will go up along with the value of most items.
Buy for $80, sell for $5,000.
You know what,
There's nothing like it on earth.
And you know what? I don't think people are rushing for that the way they are for gold or silver.
Exactly.
Or land.
So maybe. I laughed at Ian, but now
I
he's
got a lot of
me.
cheap opals last night.
I want everyone to just remember, it's going to be in like 5 years. You're going to be on the side of the road going like, these opals, and Ian's going to walk up with a shiny suit encrusted in opal, spinning his opal cane, and he's going to be like, I got your opals right here, $50.
Contain up to 30% water.
And be able to drink that.
Let's pay for that.
Yeah. You can see it like refracts through the silicon dioxide. Okay, that's all I'm going to say.
Meanwhile, wealthy elites are buying up land like crazy.
Yeah.
Because we had Max Kaiser on the show. He said inflation was 14%. What they're telling us is 5%.
Yeah.
14%. So it's just like, you got to invest it in something. You got to put it somewhere. But if that's the case,
buy a brand new car.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Seamus, man, you were just. Sorry. It's almost. I gotta say, like Ian's opal thing kind of makes sense, but the buy a car thing, geez.
Brand new. All right, only gonna go up in value.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what would you guys think a regular person should do? I mean, how much does the average person have in savings? A few $100?
Well, that's a good question. Our economy has actually been designed over the past 50 years to disincentivize saving. So most people don't, and they'll come out here with these, The left will tote these studies, and the right doesn't discuss it as often, but the left will tote these studies saying, oh, the average person doesn't have enough saved up to get them through an emergency if one occurs. And that's true. But what they don't point out is that is not the result of inadequate social welfare spending. The reason for that is because we are constantly inflating our currency, and people know that their money isn't going to be worth as much in the future as it is today. So you actually alter their time preference and make them more likely to spend in the moment. The idea behind this is that stimulates the economy. But of course, what you're doing is taking from the future because people aren't saving as much. Yeah. They're not, and they're also not learning to defer their appetites, which is a really important part of having a civil society.
And I thought you were just the cartoon guy.
Yeah, I know. Murphy thought I was an idiot. He's like, he still does, but he thought I said that nice.
Come on, Bobby Murphy.
So you're preaching temperance.
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
It is a virtue.
Yeah.
We talked about virtues.
Is that the?
Well, it's insane because here, I'm just going to say this. I know that personally, I don't really have expensive tastes besides the stuff Tim pays for, so I save a lot of my money. No, I mean, I'm serious. I don't really have expensive tastes. I save a lot of my money. And now I'm saying, like, for the past 5 years, I've lived beneath my means and basically saved everything, and that hasn't done as much good for me as I thought it could have. I should have been spending that stuff on assets that would increase in value over time.
Well, you don't spend on assets.
Yeah, you're right. You invest. But the thing is, even if I was just buying stupid short-term pleasures, in some ways, if inflation gets bad enough, that almost would have been better.
Right, because you won't be able to afford it with that same amount of money.
What if you bought a house at 3.5% or something?
Yeah,
or 5%, and inflation's at 14%?
No, yeah, exactly. So
you'd have been better off.
So here's the thing I don't understand, right? Like, I understand how they manipulate the CPI. I understand how they back out goods and services that are going up because they want to get to core CPI. I understand how they don't account for productivity gains. I understand how they game that system. But the one system that doesn't get gamed is the deepest and most liquid market in the world, which is the bond market, right? And the bond market right now says that you can borrow money at 30 years. I think it's like 5% or less. And so that person who is willing to borrow or loan you that money, all this millions and billions of dollars, is willing to loan you that money for 30 years. I don't know what the fixed rate is right now, but I think it's like 5% or less. At 5%. So the most sophisticated people in the world, with the most amount of money, with the most at risk, with the most on the line, really, hedge fund managers, pension fund managers, all these people, they're willing to invest that money for 30 years at less than 5%, which means that they don't think that inflation is real.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a machine. Maybe there's a sort of mechanization to how these systems go, and most people just go along with it. You've seen the movie The Big Short?
Well, yeah, I have, but just one more thought on that. Like, the financial markets are meant to be efficient, which is not always true. They're meant to have processed all available information, which is not always true as well. And these are the most sophisticated players, making the most sophisticated decisions. Yeah. And the way that the 30-year interest rate is composed right? It has a risk premium, and it has inflation expectations in there.
So you've seen The Big Short.
I sure have. I lived The Big Short.
Amazing
I lived
movie.
That. I was in real estate then. I was in fixed income. People know that.
People knew this was bunk. It was broken. It didn't make sense, but they didn't care. The machine was chugging along.
Well, I think they thought they could probably and I think people assume I can still pull money out of a broken system in the short term, so I'll throw something into it and I'll just get out before it crashes. They think they're going to be able to do that.
Right, but when you're loaning money away for 30 years, you're locking yourself in for 30 years. Yeah. This is a guy. These are people that have billions and billions and billions of dollars, and they're like, I'm going to give it to you for 30 years, and you only have to pay me 5%.
5% total on the capital
yes.
Wow.
So there's no built-in inflation expectation in long-term interest rates.
Well, hold on.
Which is peculiar.
If you hold $100 and inflation happens and you lose buying power, you lose. If you lend out $100 and then 30 years later, well,
right. Well, they only pay you 5%, but if inflation's 10%, you're losing.
But either way,
but it's still better. But it's still better than just holding on to the money.
Yeah. Right. But there are these people are very smart. There are inflation assets that respond well to inflation, like real estate.
And they probably do have investments in that.
They probably do both. I think it's a way to hedge your bets. It's like a little bit of a safer way. Even though you don't get as much of a return.
I think what we're saying here is that the bond market is inefficient. That's the only conclusion we can be coming to.
I don't think, I think people need to understand what money means to billionaires and to these even high millionaires.
It means never having to say you're sorry.
They don't think about $100,000. They don't think about a couple $100,000. No, you think they do. They don't.
It's acceleration. It's a form of acceleration.
I've been to Lausanne, is that the name of the city, right? In Switzerland.
Lausanne. Yeah.
Lausanne.
Yeah.
I have been in the penthouse suite of a billionaire, and it was just like they have this $50 million Swiss property that they just don't care about.
Sure. But
it was like
it's an asset. It's gaining in value. Right. They're fine with that.
Yeah.
So when they're looking at bonds, they're probably like, got to invest in something. It's better than holding cash.
It's entirely possible, but it is the most liquid, the deepest, and meant to be the most efficient market on the planet. So it's meant to reflect the sum total wisdom of all of the financial players in the world.
It turns out they're not that wise.
Look how 2008 turned out. Yeah, they're not that wise. That's probably it.
I'm not disputing. Again, I'm going to get in trouble with this. I was asking you questions about
we're not disagreeing
I
with
was
you at
asking you
all.
questions about Millie last week, or last time, and people were like, you should have heard the way Jack was shilling for Millie. He's a traitor. I was like, dude, I was just asking some questions.
About chain of command, nuclear chain of command.
And by the way, the very next day I had on Kash Patel, the chief of staff of the Department of Defense, and asked him those questions in particular, just to get the whole thing out there. But no, it's just fascinating to me to see that maybe the financial system is broken.
So, like,
that's what I'm
if
saying.
you could take a bond loan of $1 million, and then invest that at 5%, invest that into something, and then double your money.
Well, no, that's the guy. That's the smart guy. You're on the other side. You're saying I want to borrow at 5%. Heck yeah, I'll borrow.
They're
at 5%.
just loaning out at 5% because they have access to infinite.
No, they don't. These are private individuals. These are institutions. These are pension funds that are investing their money in, say, the United States government, right? All these people are loaning the United States government money at less than 5% for 30 years, knowing that they're going to take a bath. I don't know.
Maybe it's an illusion.
I don't know. All of it is just kind of screwy. All I know is I'm getting more real estate. I have real estate. I'm getting more real estate.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, I didn't just say that's smart because that might be construed as financial advice, and I would never give that.
Just construed as love.
Look, we're expanding, we're buying land, and maybe it's a bubble. I really don't care. The last thing I want to do, watching the M1 money supply spiked because they said savings are unrestricted now. Savings accounts used to have limits. You could only transfer a certain amount of times.
That's right. We talked about this.
They got rid of that. Yeah. And so I was at a bank recently, and they were like, "Do you want to open a savings or a checking?" And I was like, "Does it matter?" And they were like, "Well, I mean." It doesn't matter anymore.
Oh, you know what? I just noticed that I transferred money out of my savings account, and usually it says you can only transfer 5 times a month or whatever, and it didn't say that.
Dude,
you're right.
They removed the gates that were restricting the flow, and now it's just unleashed. And rich people are snatching up assets like crazy, and poor people are going to be left holding an empty bank.
And this is what we were saying was going to happen years ago, right? I mean, I did a cartoon about this. Rich people got all the money from the ballot. They got these incredibly low interest loans or no interest loans. And then what they were able to do is buy up all the assets from small businesses that shut down because they had to go through the SBA, which was processing over the course of 2 weeks what they're used to processing over an entire year, or like 10 times what they're used to processing over an entire year. So a bunch of small businesses shut down. The millionaires and billionaires are able to buy all that stuff up.
Yep.
And then we end up with a massive consolidation of corporate power, and people go, we need to tax the 1%.
And so it goes. And
it's they made this problem.
And look at the lockdowns, the destruction of the small business. And now they're saying we're going to fine you. You know, these are still technically small businesses with 100 employees, but now they're coming after you. I mean,